Hello there, good morning. Welcome to the continuation of our JavaScript tutorial. Today we're going to be looking at JavaScript function. In our last video, we looked at data type, where we explained that data type talks about the kind of data that a variable can hold. We've already looked at variables and how we can declare a variable and assign data to it. And then we now talked about how JavaScript variables are dynamic, how a JavaScript variable can hold integer at a point, and later on it can hold a string variable, a boolean variable, or any other kind of variable. Today we want to look at the concept of function. So a JavaScript function is a block of code designed to perform a particular task. Now, JavaScript functions are executed when something invokes it. And when we say invokes it, it means to call the function. What that means is that when you write a JavaScript function, it's in your code, but it does not do anything on its own, except if and only if the function has been called. So this is an example of a function in JavaScript. To create a function, you start with the function keyword, then next give it a name, then open braces, open bracket, and close bracket. Now, functions may have parameter or may not have parameter, right? For example, if you look at this function here, it has an open bracket and a close bracket. Then inside the bracket we have p1, p2. Now, p1, p2 are known as parameter. So now let's look at this. Say function names can contain letters and digits. So the same rules that applies to naming a variable also applies to naming a function. So just like you have in variable, you can start the variable names with underscore, $, and letter, but you cannot start with a digit. Same goes for function, like that. Then parentheses may include parameter, that is names separated by comma. So we call them parameter, so that when you are calling the function, you can say to call a function and say, okay, work with this. I want the function to take in input. So those input forms the parameter of the function. Okay, the code to be executed by the function are now placed inside the curly bracket. So after the open and close bracket, you now have open and close curly brackets. Now, the codes that makes up that function now will be written inside the open and close braces, curly brackets. Okay. Function parameters are listed inside the parentheses in the function defined. Function arguments are called values received by the function when it is invoked. Yeah. Okay. So now let's come to function invocation. The code inside the function will be executed when something invokes or calls a function. For example, when an event occurs, when a user clicks a button, it calls a function. When it is invoked, the JavaScript code, or sometimes a function can automatically self-invoke itself, right? Yeah. Function return. When a JavaScript reaches a return statement, it stops execution. So the return statement stops the execution of that function and then returns any result back to the invoker, that is the person or whatever has called the function. So if the function was invoked from a statement, JavaScript will return to execute the code after the invoking statement. Yeah, function often computes a return value. The return value is returned back to the caller. So we're going to look at an example now. Calculate the product of two numbers. So here is a function to calculate the product of two numbers. Now, to call this function, you simply write the name like this, pass in a value in place of A, which is one of the parameters, another value in place of B, which is the second parameter, and then look at what is returned here. This function merely returns A multiplied by B, so it returns the product of two numbers. So this line is where we call the function, and then the return statement, the answer returned here, is now assigned or stored in where? X, right? Okay, so let's see if we can run this on our console. I'm going to copy this code now and see if I can. Is it possible I run it on my console? Let's do this. Can I say X now? Yeah, X is 12. So you can see I have a function here. I have a variable called X, and I have a function, okay? And then I pass in that the function is merely returning A multiplied by B. So I pass in 4 in place of A and 3 in place of B. Okay, so then we have 4 multiplied by 3 to give you 12. I can still call the function again by writing my function. Then I pass in, let me say 3, 9. Then it gives me what? 27. Again, so the advantage of function is that you can use them in multiple, places on multiple different, parameters and scenarios. You can see that. So I can still call my function, say, okay, what is the multiplication of 0 0.24, comma 0.34. You can see that. So the advantage of function is that you define a function because you want to make a call, a multiple calls to them, right? On different scenarios. So one of the programming practice is that when you have certain number of codes repeating in your code, then those codes that tend to repeat multiple times, you move them to a function, and then you simply call them at the point where they are needed. Okay, let's come back here. Now, why functions? So you can reuse code. Define the code once and use it many times. Exactly. You can use the same code many times with different arguments to produce different results. So look at this function, 2 Celsius. So this function merely converts a value given in Fahrenheit into a value into its Celsius equivalent. Okay, so we're not gonna look into the opening bracket operator invokes the function. So using the example, 2 Celsius refers to the function object itself, and 2 Celsius refers to the function result itself. Yeah. So if I say document dot, so let's look at this, try it yourself. You can see. So here is just to demonstrate how the object, the function itself, the object of the function, when we say the object of the function, we are referring to the code that makes up the function, right? Yeah. For example, if you look at this example here, this is a situation where we have the function called 2 Celsius, and we wrote this line to assign 2 Celsius to a div that has an ID demo, which is this p tag here. And so look at the function here now. This is the result. So it merely puts the code there for you. It doesn't call it. But however, if I copy this line like this, and then I modify this and then I called it. I use my opening bracket and I pass in 56 and I run the code, then it returns the Celsius equivalent of a Fahrenheit temperature. 56 Fahrenheit is equivalent to 13.3334 Celsius. Okay, so functions used as variable value. Yeah, so that's why you call the function now local variable. Variables declared within a JavaScript function become local to the function. Yeah, what we mean is that so it becomes a local variable. Now, what that means is that that variable cannot be used outside of that function, and so it can only be used and accessible within the function. So this brings us to the end of today's video. See you in the next video.